Okay, hello and welcome. It is the September 9th, 2013, 7 p.m. East Long Meadow School Committee meeting. Call the meeting to order. The meeting is both being audio taped and videotaped this evening. And I would ask that everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd ask for a roll call, and I'll start to my left.
Elizabeth Marcin Boucher.
Rich Ficero.
Deirdre Mayu.
Gregory Thompson.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Bill Fonseca.
Terry Olingers, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Kathy Saletti, Recording Secretary.
Aria Rachi, Student Representative.
I'd like to personally welcome Aria. Thank you for being here tonight, our new student rep. Feel free, if you have anything you'd like to add to any of the conversation, we certainly welcome it. So thanks for being here. Welcome. We will move on then. Actually, what I'm going to do is, if the committee is so inclined, ask for, because we have some guests here tonight, to make some changes in the agenda. So I would ask that after, actually I'll ask for a motion that after number 3, committee and sub-communications, that we add item 6.3, 6.5, 6.6, and then item 7 as well. And then we go all after item 3. I'd also, within that, remove item 6.1 for this evening's discussion.
I make a motion that we revise our agenda and move to, after the committee and subcommittee communications, we move to 6.3, followed by 6.5, followed by 6.6, followed by 7, and that we remove 6.1 from the agenda.
Very nice, thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
I'll second.
Made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. So we will move on to our committee and subcommittee
Communications. All right.
discussion. Please.
First, I just wanted to let everybody know that last fall, Lou Abbott from the Willie Ross School, he retired after many years of doing wonderful things with the Willie Ross School. And I just wanted to say the new president and CEO is Robert Carter, and I actually am looking forward to meeting with him on Friday. We're going to go through all the schools and get him familiar with the program, a little more than he already has with students, I should say. And I am looking forward to that and our continued partnership. Also, I attended the CPAC meeting, which is the Special Education Parents Advisory Council, and they're kind of getting up and running and rethinking and getting reinvigorated, and they've got some wonderful programs that they're going to be offering throughout this year. They've be about once a month, and you're going to find information at the open houses this upcoming month. As you go to open house, come up and visit them. You do not need to have a student in special education portion of our system in order to gain a lot of information from these amazing parents. And one last thing is the eLeaf Run for Education is September 22nd. Please sign up, please run. If you don't run, you can just come out and support. The kids can do the Kids Fun Run. And again, that is on the 22nd of September.
Just 2 items to report. First, very much enjoyed Convocation. It seems like it was ages ago.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations to Chairperson Thompson on his address and to Mr. Smith on his presentation. I thought it went very well. And second, congratulations to Mr. Fonseca. I noticed you're on a panel, Public Education in the Commonwealth, and that is when? A week from Wednesday at the Putnam Vocational Technical Academy. Congratulations to
What
him.
time is that, Mr. Chair?
It's
Registration's at 5:30.
in-
Program starts.
It says 6.
Very good. Thank you.
That's all today, Mr. Chairperson.
Mrs. Mayu.
Yeah, I'm going to really have not much to say. I did make it to the Meadowbrook PTO meeting, and they had a good turnout, and it was a nice time, and they're just filled with a lot of activities. So my thing is, if you can volunteer your time, we need help. The schools just love having the volunteers. And then the second one is the reminder that there are open houses this month, so make sure you check your schedules to see when you have it. If you're like me, I've got 3 kids at 3 different schools, so evenings are packed. And that's all I have, Greg.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Fonseca.
I attended the home opener football game this past Friday night. Great game. We won 47-0. Quite a game. Very good crowd. Very good crowd. A lot of positive comments again about the stadium and the lighting and everything else. And was just an enjoyable night. Also, this coming Wednesday, just a quick reminder, the annual 9/11 ceremony will take place at the fire station at 8 o'clock. Okay. Yeah, candlelit ceremony.
Aria, welcome.
Thank you. Like Mr. Fonseca said, fall sports are off to a great start, and the extracurriculars should be up and running soon too. We have a club fair on Friday. The composting program is also going really well. It's a joint effort of members of the school committee, the faculty, and the students. It's going really well. We have a barrel in each cap, and we're collecting food to be composted into usable fertilizer instead of having the food go to the landfill.
Good, very cool.
Thank you.
Gordon,
Yeah, I just wanted
please.
to add, I'll piggyback on Mr. Vaquero's comments, because I was going to just thank you all for coming to Convocation and making it a great, energized start to our school year, and certainly our staff. Were fantastic through it. The energy was certainly something you could feel in the room, and I think that launched us into a very successful first 2 weeks of school. And I think people are liking sort of the buildup of students come back and they have a 3-day week, and then they have a 4-day week, and unfortunately this week is 5 days. We're back at it. So, but everybody's well rested, and it seems like the opening went well. So I want to thank all of you for being part of that.
Okay, thank you. Or with that, we will bring up item 6.3, which is a request from the East Long Meadow Scholarship Committee to place an identifying sign on their concession booth at the athletic stadium. Mr. Smith.
Okay, in your packets, you have an email which actually was sent to me from Mrs. Patnode, and you have,
We're here.
there's some folks from the Scholarship Committee right here. Thank you for being here. And you have a template of the type of sign, which I think is it's not a banner, it's a hard sign.
Correct. Hard sign.
Solid sign, science, there, Ms. Rainier, solid. That basically what it would be an identifying sign, not necessarily advertising, but it's an identifying sign so that the snack booth that is run by the Scholarship Foundation, people recognize what the donation is in the group who is running that snack booth. Our guests here
Yeah,
have
I mean,
more information for you.
my name's Dave Cotter, I'm the treasurer. I mean, we're here to answer any questions you have about the Scholarship Foundation. I think, obviously, most people have been to the football games, and there's two booths there, and so it's the exact sign that's up on the booster. We use the same company, same exact sign, so it's just to differentiate, so people know. They look at our booth, and we have a picture of both booths. One kind of looks sparse without anything up, and then they have a nice sign up. So it's really just to let people know if they want to support us, and what we're there and what we're raising money for. So, and again, we can answer any questions you have about the Scholarship Foundation, or what we're all doing. If you have any questions on that.
Questions?
Mr. Carter, I hope
Yeah.
this is an easy question.
Yep.
Back in May, the school committee passed a no advertising policy.
Right.
And as I look at this sign, on the left and right, they look like they're two different logos. Is that true?
Yeah, that's from the company that made the sign, and it's very small. What we did is, by having their logos on there, we were able to save a significant amount of money, and it basically allowed us to grant 2 more scholarships. So we took advantage of that. We weren't aware of
Right.
requirements,
We weren't aware of it.
and it's, wasn't done intentionally, but again, an opportunity to save and offer 2 more scholarships this year. We kind of look at everything in number of scholarships.
Right.
So, we took it, we thought that was a good idea, and it's I don't think it's very pronounced.
Just to follow up on that,
Yeah.
in terms of our policy, however, with the advertising on it,
Right.
do you have an opinion on?
You have everything has to flow through this body.
Okay.
Because specifically, the policy prohibits advertising on the school grounds.
Yeah.
Is there a way perhaps to stay within the policy and have those removed or blocked?
We can-
Only to follow.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at it. I almost didn't, maybe I'm thinking of it the wrong way. They made a donation of the sign, so I almost didn't think of it as advertising. It's not like, I mean, first of all, it's not like very pronounced at all, and it's not saying, so-and-so, I mean, we didn't even think of it as advertising. It's just
the company that made the sign putting their logo on it.
Right,
so-
but from our perspective, and historically speaking, signs have been put up for donations to a booster club or organization.
Right.
But we've asked for those signs to be removed because they haven't been approved and they don't follow the policy.
Mhm.
And so I think along the same lines, it's similar to the donation of the funds or
Yeah.
lack thereof for the actual sign purchase.
Mhm.
There is some monetary incentive to advertising on these signs. So I think in staying in that general
Yeah.
idea, I think we would have to probably insist that they were covered
Okay.
or removed.
Yeah, it will cost us, not that they'll renege on their promise
Sure.
to do us the signs, but we'll probably have to do a new sign. It'll probably cost us about $1,100 to redo the sign. That's,
Well, even if they were able to just put, stickers over it, I think, and
We
you
can
can work
ask.
out however you can
We
work
can
it out. I
ask.
know
Yeah.
Gary and Jim
Yeah.
well, and I
Yeah.
think they certainly are fantastic to all of anything that the schools are interested, or the town even. So
Yeah.
I would just say, so that we're all consistent,
Okay.
we probably have to ask that happen before it's put up.
If I can ask, would they be allowed to, if say for instance, they have brochures, pamphlets, papers, things like that, that they hand out to people as they come and they're inquiring and making donations
About scholarships?
about scholarships, are they allowed to have anything on those handouts?
We talked about brochures with them.
Absolutely.
I think that's an exception.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm Diane McLeod, I'm president of the Scholarship Foundation. We actually don't have any flyers or anything like that we send out at the football games. We're
Okay.
really there
is
to
that
try to
allowed?
do the fundraising, to
Just
try to make money.
No, it's
to
a
get
good, it's a good
scholarships.
point. I mean, is that type of thing allowed? I mean, we haven't thought of doing it. And it's not to put flyers. all
No,
over the
certainly,
place.
these are all educationally based endeavors, and
Yeah.
and certainly we want the Scholarship Foundation to be successful. So if you felt that handing out information about the foundation and fundraising events, certainly passing the word out
Yeah.
is always something
Yeah.
we would just encourage. It's just specifically the advertising part of it, and I think the sign
this
is
is
great. It's going to
signage.
look great up there.
So this is more from consistency, what you've done to other clubs.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know. I mean, obviously, we asked the Booster Club what they did. They directed us to what they did, and I
Yep.
think probably back then, the law, I guess this was not in place.
Much different back then, because I was
Yeah.
involved.
It was only a year. They put it up a year ago,
Yeah.
I think, the sign, so.
The existing one now, you mean?
Yeah, the sign up they have, it does not have advertising.
Doesn't
on
it have- right,
It
right.
doesn't, but it was up a year ago.
Right.
And we just asked them, what approval process did they have to go through? And they didn't mention, now, they might have and didn't mention it to us, but they didn't mention to us that they had to go through this approval
I don't believe they
process.
did.
No,
So
this policy
we should
was
maybe ask
actually-
them to do that.
This policy was actually, and it was just some incidents that happened last year, not really incidents, but some situations that arose. We approved this policy on June 17th, so nobody would have known prior to that, so nobody came before us. I believe they used to go through the athletic director, if I'm correct.
Building principal.
Is there one sign or two signs? Is it
One.
one sign?
Yeah.
Is it going to go just like the other building right
It's
on
the
top?
exact same sign.
Okay, great.
Exact same sign.
Sounds great to me. So,
So if we take it off,
We'll try to get it
it'll be
covered.
approved, it's okay?
yeah, so pending, either the covering up or removal of the two logos on the bottom corner, that's with certainly a vote of this board still. So I guess with that, I'd ask for a motion of some kind.
All right. So I'll make a motion to accept the East Long Meadow Scholarship Foundation sign pending the removal of the two advertisement logos on the sides.
Okay.
Or covering, right?
Covering
Okay.
up,
Covering
right,
cheaper.
sorry, removal or covering up.
Removal or covering, yep,
Yeah.
thank you. Motion being made
Second?
and seconded, thank you. Any other discussion on that? That's something you can do?
Give it a
You can
shot,
work?
sure.
Okay, appreciate it.
Give it a shot.
So hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
We do appreciate
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes, I mean,
you do what you do.
Yeah.
We appreciate, actually, I'm gonna say it, Go Graphics allowing you guys to have the sign, even though we're making you take it, the advertisement off. We'll fix it.
Okay,
Sorry.
thanks so much.
Had to say it, sorry.
Oh, good.
Okay, moving right along, we have also moved up items 6.5 and 6.6. I'll let Mr. Smith run away
Okay,
with this one, please.
in your package, you have our first two foreign trips that are operating under the new policy that was also approved last spring. And we have two
teachers here who I think, if you don't mind coming up, with Ms. Rainier and Ms. Faulkner. Ms. Faulkner or Faulkner?
Faulkner.
Faulkner is going to be the lead person on the trip to Rome and Greece, and Ms. Rainier is going to be the lead person, staff person on the trip to Costa Rica. As you flip through the packet, items 6.5 and 6.6, you have first a preliminary approval memo coming to me from the principal of the high school, Gina Flanagan. Then you have an overview of the Greece and Rome trip. And I believe the cost has been updated on the cover memo. So it's $3,232, I think, per person. Yeah. And then at the end, you have a memo outlining the Costa Rica trip, and the cost is there in the middle to students, along with the itinerary at the end. So in accordance with the policy, you can give preliminary approval. If you feel that there are items that you'd like further information on, you can grant full approval. And certainly you also, if fundraising, you might want to ask about any fundraising activities that are going on, just so you're aware of those. And generally, once you approve or give preliminary approval, they would work through the building principal to make sure that they're organizing fundraising activities and that the principal's supporting them.
Questions, Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Rainier, if I'm correct, your trip is good, begins on the Friday that there's no school.
Right.
And turns at the end of April vacation, there's no school days left.
Right.
Ms. Faulkner, I'm not sure what your dates are.
It's the Wednesday just before the Friday where there's no school, so it's, I believe, the 16th
So it's
of
okay.
April. So the
2 days there.
so we would be missing 2 days. Hopefully that Wednesday would actually anywhere from no school, because the trips to fly out, we have asked to fly out of Logan.
Okay.
And when you fly out of Logan, you usually leave in the afternoon
Right.
and take an evening flight. So hopefully we would miss, an hour or less of
Okay.
school.
So mostly, I mean, you'll be back during April vacation?
And we would be back during April vacation, so they miss no school on the other
Okay,
end.
okay.
Other questions? Is tonight, if we were to grant preliminary approval so that you can keep the process going, would that suffice? And then perhaps as you get things finalized, more definitive numbers in terms of how many
Students going.
students may go? You don't have
Right, because
necessarily
at this
have to-
point, we're not allowed to advertise in school.
Yep.
So that would grant us the opportunity
Right.
to be able
Okay,
to do that.
perfect. All right.
It would be
Can I
helpful, I
hear
think, if also, once you have your chaperones all set, just when you resubmit the final information, it's just who the chaperones are. Awesome.
Is there a time or date that
You
you
need
recommend
it,
final?
according to the policy, at least 90 days before the trip goes out.
And the trip is? April. So January?
Yeah, by
I would say January.
January
give you enough
1st
time.
even, sometime in December even. Okay.
Are there any plans for fundraising?
Because I've done this trip before in the past, it was more, we did voluntary fundraising, and most of those fundraising events raised money to cover the tips for the driver and for our guide. So it wasn't an extensive amount of fundraising
Okay.
that we did, no.
Okay.
Because again, that also comes up against school policy of doing certain
Right.
fundraising during school.
Okay, thank you.
There's a lot of policies out there.
I know. We apologize for that.
Yeah.
That's your job.
It is, that's right.
Unfortunately.
Okay, with that, I will, I'm looking for a motion for preliminary approval for both of the field trips.
I move to preliminary approve the high school Latin field trip to Rome and Greece, April 16th through the 24th, and the high school science field trip to Costa Rica, April 18th through April 26th.
Very good, motion made.
Second.
And seconded, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0.
If you run short of chaperones, don't forget about us. You might be able to help out.
Goes into
Worth
your-
it. Thank you so much. We look
Thank you.
forward to seeing you
Thank you
again.
so much
Okay.
for the opportunity.
Thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to We have an opportunity for visitors to address the committee, so there's an open opportunity. I know that you might want to wait. I'll also offer it at the end of the meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Okay, excellent.
All right.
So with that, we will move on to item 4.2.1, which is Mrs. Olajar's end of the year FY12 audit report from Scanlon and Associates. Terry.
So every year I prepare what's called the end of the year people report, and this goes to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's a report that reports every single penny that we spend out of the budget, out of grants, out of revolving funds that the town spends on our behalf. And part of this report is a requirement to have a yearly audit as part of the town's audit. And so this is the report that was prepared in September, October of 2012, 2012 for FY12, and getting time to start it all over again for FY13. But our audit was at the end of June, so that's why this is coming now. What is in this report starts really with the letter from the auditors that kind of explaining what the report is and that it's not a hard and fast audit, you know, that it was just really an oversight, and they come in and they look at everything. It really takes about a day and a half for this audit to take place. And the findings are actually very minor little findings, and some of them are actually, even though there's 4 findings, I think there's at least one that is actually the same thing, but it just affects 2 different spots in the report. And so I can go through them briefly. The first one is about the Race to the Top grant, that the revenue received, $4,102, was reported on the wrong line. This was actually an amount that was what we call a carryover from one year to the next, and so that was just in the wrong space. And when we have these findings, it's our responsibility, the school district's responsibility, to file an amendment with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and we do that before we get the report and show that that amendment to the auditors, and that's why each response says the same thing, that we have filed an amendment to make the correction. The second one has to do with bond anticipation notes that were used by the town for some of our capital expenses, and that was reported again in the wrong space. And the third one has to do with federal grants. This is a little confusing, as much of this is. There was $25,803 that was circuit breaker money, but came to us late in the year as part of the federal error grants. So we received a directive from DESE that says we should report that as federal revenue. So I report it as federal revenue and the expenditures as federal grant expenditures. And the auditor said we should have, because it was technically circuit breaker money, it should have, the expenses come out of the circuit breaker, so it was just a different column. So all the money was reported as expended, but just in the wrong column again. And the last one was very minor, emission of just the number of riders at the very end of the transportation report. It had all the dollars on it, but didn't have the number of riders. So, and that is it for that report for that year.
How long is this report?
This is that report. And when you can see when they say it's on the wrong line, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of being able to follow it on the computer and put it on the right line. So it's a series of schedules, and it takes a fair amount of time to do that.
Most of July, right?
Oh, I haven't started it yet.
That was last year's.
Questions on the report from Scanlon
Well,
Associates?
I think we can honestly see that Mr. Olajar has done a wonderful job, and these are just plain nuances.
Yeah, I agree.
And now I know why I never wanted to be an accountant. So, congratulations, Mr. Olajar.
Very good job, thank you.
Should we approve this?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yep, I accept it, I would say. We'll accept
The
it.
motion to accept the end of the year FY12 audit report from Scanlon Associates.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion on it? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Ready? Okay. So as we had moved item 7 up, we will allow for visitors to address the committee. And with that, I'd certainly invite any visitors who would like to speak. Please come up. Please. Good evening.
We have three, so just hand them out.
Who wants some?
One there, one at each table, I guess, yeah. One there.
Thank you.
I accept this.
For some of the written literature, you guys could, if you have computers, you can go on to eltennis.weebly.com and you'll find some, most of the written part of it over there, and the pictures also.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Michael Myers, East Long Meadow resident, and involved with a lot of different aspects of tennis from all ages in the community. And Tripti Molly here.
I'm a resident of East Long Meadow. I have 3 kids who went through it, but he fails to note himself that he's on our Hall of Fame up there.
Very cool.
We came in front of you guys tonight, I guess, well, hopefully for a little help, but we're trying to get through the process of figuring out how to bring a healthy family tennis back to life here in East Long Meadow. And I know you guys had a study that was almost finished this summer in terms of addressing property space usage for new purposes potentially in the future. And we wanted to discuss the tennis courts that haven't been really touched in 40 years from a town perspective, other than private donations in 1997, to at least keep the courts viable for people to actually go on them without them being shut down in 1997. So it's been almost 40 years with relatively no dollars going into those courts for any purpose other than maybe fixing a few cracks, replacing a few nets. So we're kind of here to start the conversation on how to, tennis is in a huge upswing right now. We want to talk about how the East Long Meadow Tennis Association, the high school teams, the high school booster clubs, and all of these, small programs in East Long Meadow want to see if we can figure out how to get to the next step to get tennis back in the, not the limelight, but near the limelight of town healthy activities.
Sure.
So
I think it's fair to say that this committee is certainly in agreement with your certainly assessment of the courts and the need for courts. We've had for several years now, as I'm sure you've been made aware, that they've been on our capital plan, and we've prioritized them in line every year since we've had them on the plan as to where we feel they best fit within what dollars that we have or at least able to ask for in conjunction with appropriations, capital planning. And so over the past couple of years, it has been on our plan. It hasn't made the final list. So
It's made our final list, it hasn't made capital planning's
Right.
recommendation list.
in terms of the amount of dollars that were available to fund. So you have a warrant article in the special town meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Do we know if that's been finalized? Is the warrant finalized?
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's still, they did reopen it due to the change in the date of the town meeting.
Okay, so the warrant's open?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be finalized at the next selectmen's meeting, which is the 17th of this month.
And within the warrant article, I see you have a figure of $325,000. And can you just kind of explain what that would include, I guess? And how you arrived at it as well, I suppose?
We got 3 quotes, or essentially we got 3 quotes. We're waiting for another quote from, we had a third quote that was fairly accurate from Cape and Islands, who did our track, but they didn't want to bid, and due to some geography issues with other tennis companies that are in the area, so we kind of removed their quote. But we got a quote from Department of Public Works in town which is in your packet there. Also, we got a quote from very professional regional builder who's designed, 800 to 1,000 courts in the last 20 years, who have done it right and who have worked with the United States Tennis Association, which will pay for probably 35% of the project if it's done right. So the DPW put a quote in which was for only half the facility to be renovated, so their numbers were slightly off from a perspective of what was put down for our purposes. So it almost has to be doubled, which is essentially the same quote. Their quote was essentially the same if you double it as what a professional company who's done 1,000 courts in the, within 100 miles of this area in the last 20 years. Very reputable facility, that works with US Open in New York City and New Haven Open and at Yale. They've done all the big facilities, and they're very good at what they do. But so those quotes are there. We don't have our lighting figure is not down to $100,000. It's in that quote of $325 to put up lighting as well, to share with the lighting that potentially is out there now next for the practice football field or practice soccer field to the east of the tennis courts. But that number's pretty hard. I mean, we're tweaking a few things in the next week or two. We have another quote coming in from Vermont Tennis, who's also a big New England player in terms of working with facilities that have cracks and thaw and freezing surfaces, and how to put the best sub-base in to avoid some of those maintenance costs that can come up every few years if you don't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do a poor job, your maintenance comes up in year 2 or 3 rather than hopefully year 7 or 8, and then you go forward with a fairly small maintenance program after that. What am I missing from?
I think you're hitting all the points.
I guess our big question tonight is we've walked the property. Many people walked the property from our East Long Meadow Tennis Association, the Booster Club, and this group. There's about 150 people actively talking and working towards this warrant for October 21st, and we've walked the property. So we're trying to figure out where we need to go in terms of if we're really close to where you guys are in terms of what space is going to be available, that tennis courts are going to be the right spot to be.
I think the short answer to that specific question, not that we can't find an answer to that question, is we don't know. To say, though, that if this does go to town meeting, and I'm just speaking personally from experience with town government and how things happen, if it was approved at town meeting, we would find a spot to put it, because if there's money to do it, we'll do it, and we'll put it in the best spot that we think we can at the time. That said, however, typically when this board collectively decides on capital requests, we do that in conjunction with Appropriations Committee and Capital Planning Committee, and we're generally on the same page in terms of where money comes from, how we should best use money, and thus, when it gets to the town meeting floor, if a question arises, does any of those 3 committees recommend, we've had an opportunity to have a thorough discussion on that. So I don't know tonight if you just want to find out process things, or is it, well, I guess my question is what can we help you with, or what can we answer in terms of this board?
Well, I know there's quite a few things we have to do to get United States Tennis Association money approved, money from East Long Meadow Tennis Association approved, for this project, and all those other things in line. We have a lot of work to do, but if someone comes to us and says in May that the courts still aren't approved, they don't know where they're going to be positioned on the high school property, or I mean, we'd like to know where we should take our small steps without wasting time. So you guys,
right, and I think
give us some guidance.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, and this is the way to do it, because if we're all on the same page, this is the process. So. I don't. Does the rest of the
I would like to
committee
think our facility studies will give us an answer to that this fall.
Certainly something we can ask the architects.
Some guidance anyway.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it may be, but I think until a actual direction is taken in terms of we're going to move with this project or that project, and I'm speaking more specific building, not necessarily outside facilities such as the tennis courts. I don't know that we'll know that answer within the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. I don't know that. To say that where the existing tennis courts sit now wouldn't be best used for something else, and then the tennis courts would be better over here or there. I don't know that we'll have that answer. I don't know, Gordon, if you feel
Certainly
differently.
something we can, no, I agree with you. As the facility study starts to get presented this fall, what they're going to do is present an assessment of all the buildings in the school system, and then hopefully start to, with the school committee's help and then the community's help, put together what might be a phased plan from here out to, say, 12 years, and then it really becomes a master plan. Specifically, and we can certainly ask in some of those meetings, how, is there a way to, before you get out that far, to pinpoint where tennis courts might be? Because part of this whole process might be entering another process which is governed by the Mass School Building Authority. And so that may change, and it also takes a longer timeline. Because if you get into that pipeline and get into potentially being reimbursed for some of your investment, you have to follow their guidelines. So if that answers the question a little bit more specifically.
But
it's certainly something we can ask the architects and see what kind of answer the architects who are have undertaken the study that is being completed now this fall, and see what kind of answer we can get for you.
But I just think personally, just from being within the process, and I'm new at the facility study process, however, where we're at now, just from being within it, I would say realistically, we're not going to have definite direction for, I would say, a year. I would say minimally, and that would line up with another perhaps special town meeting. So, you know, I'm saying a year even from October. Only because I don't foresee necessarily, although we may start to move towards somewhere with perhaps a warrant article or such at the annual town meeting, this coming annual town meeting.
You're saying your committee would move forward with the new, with a plan based on the...
A plan for the facility as a whole, yes.
Yeah.
So I would say that we won't have any definite answers for 12 months, I would say, or at least 13 months. Based on where we are now, it won't be the annual, and that's just me. I mean, if we get moving and rolling here, maybe something might happen. I just don't know that it, well, there's several steps. So the long and the short of it is, it's going to be 12 months before we can say the existing location is the best spot for it. Now, I don't want to discourage the effort if you feel that the need is there. It certainly is. We agree with that. And if you... I guess my next question would be, have you been to appropriations and/or capital planning, and how or what funds are you asking for from town meeting to pay for them?
They're right now.
They're meeting right now?
They're at that meeting, I
Okay.
believe it's a free cash issue.
Right.
Okay. So it would come from free cash? is
Right,
what we
that's
think.
what, the first page, top page is what the article states,
The warrant
where
article.
we are asking the money from.
Just so that I'm not confused, Mr. Pizzatelli and I had met a while ago. Is he part of your group?
Yes, he's at
Okay.
appropriations meeting
He's at
right now, so
appropriations.
we had to split
Okay.
up. We
Sal
couldn't all
Pizzanelli
go
is
to
the,
the same.
yeah, he's been the president of the East
Okay.
Long Meadow Tennis
Okay,
Association.
I just wanted to make
which
sure that was all
is,
coordinated.
Yes, it's all
Thank you.
same
Thank you.
group.
Yeah.
Greg, if, say for instance, the town approved it, okay, now they have the funds, they have the wherewithal, it looks like there's grant potential money.
Does you have to, yeah.
At that point, even if, regardless of what we ultimately do with our buildings, like you said, we would find a place for it, do you think that the people who we've hired for the building study would say, you know, they can maybe give us an idea of the best potential place? I mean, if we get to that point, because if they get the money, we can't sit on it for, you know what I'm saying, you want to run with it.
No, I think, yes, to answer your question,
Yeah.
yes, or at least on a consultation business, or perspective, I think we as a community would probably know best, and you may even know better certainly than I would know, but in conjunction with the building principal, athletic director, I think we could probably say, all right, this space would be safe. I don't know. I guess we could ask that question and probably get a
Right.
decent answer. Would it be ideal in the long run? Maybe not, but it would be safe from the need to move it in 10, 5 years. I don't know. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, that would probably be a nice solution to have it be okay there until another long-term plan
Right.
changes it in 10 or 15 years.
15 years,
But
15,
I
20,
don't-
yeah.
I think, Mr. Wise, I think what we're saying, we just need to be cautious. We don't want to say something that in some way really hurts your plan. I think, as Mr. Thompson has said, 12 months is a conservative but a very realistic figure. At least gives you an idea of how to plan. I mean, if we get an answer earlier than that, that's wonderful. But we just want to make sure that what we're saying is something that you can work with. And we don't want to give you any kind of ideal situation, and then we come back to you and say, sorry, this is what the architect said. And that would really hurt everybody. So I think the best we can say is we're just trying to be very realistic with you and very cautious at the same time to make sure your plan works.
Because I think the other thing is we want to make sure that it's, and I think we're in agreement, let's do it the first time, let's do it right. But
Absolutely.
we're just not there, we're not there yet.
Because of this facility
Because of the
study.
facility study.
And this study is almost available? I mean, it was,
So the general idea behind the facility study, as Mr. Smith pointed out, is we're looking at all 5 buildings and how we can best use our buildings, and is there potential in multiple options in terms of new construction, renovations, using exactly what we have. And so we've gathered all the information now. And from there, we start to go out to the community, stakeholders in the community, to get as much input as we can so that we can say, all right, this is how the town feels on what we should do next as the town of East Long Meadow school system. We haven't had those discussions with the community or the stake members in the community. That takes months. And so, yes, preliminary data is in, but all it's telling us is, this part of the building is good, this part could use some updates, that sort of thing. And so we're not, I know it's speaking real out here, but does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, the best part, what Mr. Thompson explained, is that, when we have these meetings, hopefully you'll attend. And you'll attend, with the idea about the tennis courts, and that will help in the meeting. As we go through this process and talking to the community, you'd be very helpful in the tennis courts and what we're talking about. So, I mean, you would have the opportunity to participate in these open forums.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess if we come back to to what you guys represent in terms of, if you look at those courts for next March 19th, when they open up for 50 high school athletes, how do you handle the cost of what's going to happen out there? Because the courts may have to shut down. You may not want to, you may have to bus people to other locations. So if there's a Band-Aid solution here for 12 months, I know you guys have all probably walked the tennis courts, or at least
Well,
many, yeah. So is there another step we can take tonight to look at a small step before the big?
I think we have to take that under advisement. The only thing I can speak of, Mr. Myers, is as a former track parent, my son never had a home meet. So, I mean, I understand what you're feeling, and I know your daughter as well as a principal. I understand what you're feeling, but it may have to be that, at the very least, we have a complete schedule, but our home tennis courts might have to be flexible. Sir. But I mean, once again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Okay. I'm just asking if there is a busing and a completely different schedule, is there Band-Aid money to?
We'll absolutely have a tennis team for boys and girls tennis, unless something dramatic happens. We'll absolutely have a boys and girls tennis team this March.
Yeah, but my final question on that is if there's funds that are going to drive the kids and use other space, and maybe there's some small funds to Band-Aid the issues, to at least get from the courts potentially closed to open for residents.
The existing courts, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, so I would ask, do you know, do those Band-Aids exist that would do that? I don't know.
Well, if we had to fill some cracks or fill the most obvious cracks for X dollars rather than paying for buses to go to other towns for 62 days.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's guidance there, rather than spending money to go to another town like some other, like the track program had to.
Can
We could probably figure out that assistance without money going to just driving people around.
Right. Okay. It certainly sounds reasonable.
Oh, it
I think
does.
if we could internally look at that, it certainly makes sense
I
to
know
me.
in my time, Mr. Thompson's principal, the DPW did make repairs in that track and try to keep it, did make repairs on the tennis courts, and did try to keep it as playable as possible.
Yeah.
They would do paving, and they would do cleaning out the cracks and things like that.
There was some crack repair at
Right,
certain times.
exactly, yeah. So there-
Privately, $5,000 came in from about 12 residents about 9 years ago, to at least keep a program in town.
Right.
So it's there's been a few
Correct.
positive steps along the way, even though they were only 6-month solutions.
But we'd be open to any kind of option which is best for our students and best for the town too, because we use it March through May, but the town uses it pretty much more than the school does. I know the PE department also uses it at a period of time too.
Right.
I think if we can help with that solution of the funds
Okay.
going in the right direction, then I think that's really it almost has to be done now rather than, you can't do it in March.
Right.
Right.
It's an October solution. Or you don't do it till April or May and the season's over and you haven't.
Can we follow up with the DPW and see some options, or if there is an option that exists? And,
So we're talking about filling cracks and keeping them playable.
Yeah,
Doing the lines.
If you do something, at least you have a facility that's maybe safe in the greens of your committee and other people that you know would want to know the safety of the courts, because they're it's a huge issue, but
I know I stayed quiet on
we
this,
really
but-
don't want to.
It's absolutely frustrating. I've played the courts, and it is hard to play on them. If there's something we can do to at least keep them playable, if we can't invest the money right now to completely renovate them. I think right now we're just in a frustrating situation. We're kind of in this limbo of what the answers are for the facility study. So it's almost like the timing is off for us right now to make a firm decision. But if there's something we can do in the meantime, I think it would at least help us with that decision and see where we are in 12 months.
Yeah, just one more statistic that you won't read about is there's probably almost 200 tennis players in town. There's a lot of tennis players, and they're driving out of town to go play tennis and to go have lunch because they're not in town when they're doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
So the Long Meadow shops, the Forest Park residents are getting all kinds of people to walk into their shops because people are leaving town. And this, as Deidre was saying, there's a huge momentum swing right now.
Yeah.
And at least if the courts stay open and we still build some programs, Trupti has started with some new programs the Booster Club has been a very positive influence this season. So if we can help direct the transfer fund of a small amount of money with DPW's assistance, I think we at least are on the right path from what we've done with our 300 or 400 hours of studies and time in that last 3 months and 5 years.
Going back to the original issue though, if this goes through and we are going to the meeting, how much of a support do we expect from you guys? And what kind of support do we expect from you guys?
So as I mentioned prior, though, is typically when we look for a capital project, capital investments, it's a combined effort, us, appropriations, capital planning. So, and that's why I asked where we might look for the funds, and you say free cash, and so we'd have to certainly look at all those numbers, what's available in free cash, and then also have input from appropriations. At least myself and probably other members would want that input in terms of, is this fiscally the right time to do it? Is special town meeting the right time to do it from a financial standpoint? I don't think anyone at this table would dismiss the fact that we need tennis courts today or soon. It's just how we fund it so that we're all doing it responsibly, and I guess that's the kind of input that we would need to get. And so I would say until those two boards act, this board probably wouldn't act in terms of a formal recommendation.
Are we allowed to recommend, because it's on our capital, like, because it's kind of coming under the wire, sort of,
Right, so the way I look at it is, and again, working with capital and appropriations, we all want to do our jobs, and so we, as the school department, see value in new tennis courts. So we bring that, and we've brought it for several years as part of our list to capital and appropriations indirectly. And we've gone down the list, so we prioritize things. So we have some other things above the tennis courts, and we typically will fund 4 or 5 things, and the bottom 6 or 7 don't get funded. Wherever that dollar amount runs out, it runs out. So I think, at least for now, without knowing that appropriations and capital is comfortable making that expenditure mid-year, I don't know that it would be appropriate for this board to say, as a whole, I don't want to speak for any members, but as a whole to say, we recommend doing that now.
as
this way.
residents, we can have our own thought, but as a board, we have to work together.
Yeah, we have to think collegially.
So say in 2 weeks when you guys have another meeting, by then you would know what the appropriations has come up with?
I don't know if they have a vote planned or, so typically when there's warrant articles that have a financial impact, anything with a dollar amount in it, appropriations and capital planning are asked to come up with either or a recommendation or to not recommend. Or sometimes they'll put not enough information, but they'll bring the recommendation to the town floor. So until they do that, and that won't happen until after the warrant is finalized by the Board of Selectmen. So once the warrant's finalized by the Board of Selectmen, it'll go to appropriations and capital planning, and they'll have their discussions and figure out, where the money is and what money's where. And then they typically will have some sort of formal vote to say, yes, we recommend warrant article, whatever warrant article might be, for the tennis courts, or we don't recommend them at this time, or we don't have enough information. So I would say whenever they're planning on doing that, I don't know. But if they were to do that, I think we could certainly consider it at that point. I don't know if the board would feel the same way about that, but.
That's the way I would go. We gotta, we just don't have enough, we don't know, like Greg said, we don't know exactly where the other boards are yet. We gotta see where the funding comes, what their recommendation on the funding is. Because as of this time, one of the problems is free cash has not been certified yet, so the town can't touch it. So they're working, I do know that the town accountant is working through that, getting that paperwork set for the DOR. But that's above and beyond our scope. That's on the town side. So again, we're still gonna be gathering more information on this, even for the funding.
And just to take that a step further, I don't know how often you brought warrant articles to town meeting, but if you ask for the money from free cash and it's not certified, then the only other option you have, and I think the way it's worded, and certainly I would go to the moderator on the question, but I'm just telling you how I interpret it. If it goes for, what's the next threshold of money, Terry? Not free cash, but stabilization fund would be your only other option, but I think it requires a 2/3 majority vote.
It does.
Free cash, only a simple majority, and stabilization would be at 2/3. But again, Jim Shields, our moderator, would certainly be able to help you on that. I just give that to you so you know what you're kind of up against when we get there. And as Bill mentioned, if free cash is not certified, which I think there's still a chance it may not be by that meeting, then that would be your only other option. But that's just another side note. Any other questions or?
I think one more comment, just the East Long Meadow Tennis Association that's raised a bit of money over the last several years. Would like to probably use some of that money for the maintenance schedule going forward when the court's open. We really don't want to Band-Aid the process now because obviously it doesn't make sense to do that right now and spend all our money on the Band-Aids to fill the cracks and then have the courts moved or closed or whatnot. But there has been some serious efforts over the last 6-8 years that there is a little money there to help. So just so you guys know, as you talk to friends and neighbors, that there is a process to go forward once the courts are open.
To maintain them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can start thinking about that now if our cash is going to line up in that type of use.
I think that's great. I think, as a community effort, it shows that. And to your point before about other towns having busy tennis courts, I'd love to see that happen here again. We should be as busy as our neighbors sometimes are on their courts. So you've got our support, and I think I can speak for the committee that we want them. We think there's value in them. It's just how we fund it, when we fund it, and if we can all do it collectively, I think that's the way to go, so.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on to, what do we have, policy, section K. Mr. Smith.
Okay, Section K is a second reading. You have in your packets the index, which gives you an idea of where revisions were made and what revisions were made. And any revised policy is then after the index itself.
Questions on section K?
I just had a question about KA, and it's just out of curiosity, your school/community relations goals. So what we're seeing in bold, those last 4 statements, are what you added?
Those are, I think, most recent changes. KA, do we, this is the MASC version. So KA is actually an MASC policy, and those are the most recent changes that they've made to it. So it would replace our KA.
I like the detail in it, it's very...
Any other questions on K?
I make a motion to approve section K, community relations.
Thank you, motion made.
I'll second it.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Section L.
This is my kind of section.
Section L actually completes it's a first reading, so it's coming back to you. It will complete our review of the manual, and it's actually a shorter section. On here, really it's the final few policies where we've either removed the policy because it's covered in a Mass General law, or it's covered in a previous policy, such as when you look down LBC as relations with home schools, we actually cover homeschooling in IHBG. And we've already looked at that policy. The only recommendation that I would make, and we didn't see this, I missed it in the policy subcommittee meeting, is policy LDA, which talks about student teaching and internships. This is when you have students from area colleges who are studying to become educators, and then they are placed in our buildings as student teachers. To be current with actual practice, that final sentence in the first paragraph, all initial arrangements with colleges and universities will be subject to, probably should say building principal. We have relationships, ongoing relationships with area schools around student teaching and internships, so those relationships are in place. What gets final approval right now is when a school such as Springfield College asks, they contact the building principal and they say, we have student teachers in physical education, science, and whatever else they may have. Would you have space to have them student teach in your school, say, spring semester? And then the building principal checks that with the departments. You need a cooperating teacher to coordinate with that person. If they can get all that in place, then they approve it.
Okay, so on the second reading, we'll change that?
Sure,
Okay.
I can change that.
We did discuss that, it just didn't get changed.
Yeah.
We did talk about
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, we did talk about it.
Any other questions on section L?
Thank you.
Okay, we will have that on our agenda next meeting for a second reading.
Okay.
And we have a field trip, kindergarten field trip, up next.
Yes, in your packet, thank you, you have, actually, which I think is becoming an annual trip, because I think they at least took this last year, if not the last 2 years, but our kindergartners, all the kindergarten classes are, during the month of October, studying the characteristics of living things, and you see an outline that came from Mrs. Dakin, Meadowbrook principal, on the front part of that, and then you have some detail on what Pell Farms offers. And so at the end of this unit, where they're looking at the characteristics of living things and how they grow, they would like to take a field trip to Pell Farm, which is in Somers, Connecticut, in order to look at the pumpkin patch and participate in some outdoor classroom activities, if you will.
Okay. Do we have a motion for that? Please.
I move that we approve the out-of-state field trip for Meadowbrook School kindergartners in the month of Wednesday, October 16th, and Thursday, October 17th, to Pell Farms.
Perfect, thank you. Motion made.
I'll second.
And seconded by Mr. Fonseca. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. We have a note that the special town meeting date has changed from October 7th to October 21st, which means we have scheduled our meeting to change. So on the 7th, we had moved to 5:30. Gordon, would it be your recommendation that we do the same for the 21st and put the 7th back at 7?
I think it certainly makes sense to put this October 7th back to its regular time. The 21st, we generally do have, as Mr. Ficero brought up, either a data meeting or a SMART goals meeting, which tend to be longer meetings. So it's really, I guess, up to the committee. If we're looking on the 21st to have that still be the data meeting, then we might want to switch to another night rather than try to squeeze it in a half.
Well, can we do the data meeting the following in November, the first meeting in November, and keep October 21st light?
We can. We would just probably push back. Generally, we try to do the data meeting and then the goal meeting, right?
Yes.
The next meeting, so that you're looking at your data, what's making sense, what remains challenges, and then you can set your goals.
Could we have the MCAS data meeting on October 7th? Is that too quick?
We can give that a shot. We've started with preliminary data. We have the preliminary data now, and we are on the 19th, because the 12th is actually going to be a meeting with the architects. We'll be looking at more in depth, this is September 19th for the leadership. So there's a possibility we could do it for the 7th.
Try that. Does that kind of hold up their direction for the year, the longer we wait? Or do they just go with it and just update us?
It holds up the direction in that the district goals aren't finalized, but we have a draft going now, which obviously we'll bring to all of you later in October. But it makes sense, we can try for October 7th and do the data meeting.
So with that, then, let's change the 7th, move the 21st up to 5:30. And if we have to change again, we can change, I suppose. That 21st, if we don't get to the data, perhaps we'll consider a secondary date, but we'll know better in 2 weeks, probably?
Yeah, we'll know
Okay.
by the 19th.
So why don't we swap them for now and then see what happens, I guess? If that's all right
Okay.
with the committee?
Yep.
And ask for a motion to that effect, please.
All right, so I will make a motion to change our Monday, October 7th meeting from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And then also change the October 21st meeting to a 5:30 start time.
Okay.
I'll
great.
second
Thank you.
that.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
With that, we have gone through the whole agenda. So, Aria, thank you. First meeting.
Thank you for having me.
And I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made
Second?
and seconded by Mrs. Marzian Boucher. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much.